Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, when we think about the MSRA SJT, it's not really testing you on the straightforward, easy stuff.
No, not at all.
It tests what happens when you're under, immense pressure. Maybe you're fatigued, you're at the end of a long shift, and you're suddenly facing a genuine crisis. And today, we are diving deep into one of the absolute highest priority areas, I'd say moderate to hard difficulty, which is dealing with errors and complaints in the NHS.
This is such a critical area. It's because it forces you to bring together so many different skills at once. You've got candor, clinical safety, your emotional intelligence, and on top of all that, this really rigorous governance knowledge.
Right.
It's just not enough to feel bad that an error happened.
Right.
The exam is looking for you to demonstrate a systems-based professional response, one that protects the patient, of course, but also promotes learning.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here to do, really, to give you the shortcut to that exact professional response. So let's set the scene. I want you to imagine a scenario, the kind of gut-wrenching, high-stakes situation that just defines this topic.
Okay.
Imagine this and really try to feel the panic. You've just finished a long, draining shift. You're quickly reviewing the evening drug chart, and your stomach just drops. You realize that an hour ago, in a moment of just being rushed, you prescribed 50 milligrams of IV morphine.
Oh, wow.
When the standing dose should have been 5 milligrams, 10 times the dose.
A huge error.
A huge error. You rush to the bedside. The patient is drowsy, but, their stable sats are fine. Breathing seems adequate. But this is a significant error, and you need help now.
And of course, in these scenarios, you're never surrounded by help.
Exactly. To make it worse, your senior registrar is scrubbed in theater. They won't be able to talk for at least another half an hour. You are completely alone with this mistake. So what do you do? What is the exact sequence of steps you must take right now, in that moment? That point of decision, that choice between your gut instinct and your professional duty. That is exactly what the SJT tests.
And that tension, that pull between trying to fix it quietly versus reporting it fully, that leads us right to the core truth for this whole deep dive.
Okay.
If you take one thing away, it's this, the one-sentence takeaway. For errors and complaints, the LJT will always reward you for owning the error, protecting the patient, escalating via both clinical and governance pathways, and demonstrating concrete learning and transparency.
That is the goal. So why? Why does the GMC and the exam put so much weight on this? Why isn't fix it and move on ever the right answer?
Because it's just fundamental professionalism. It's rooted so deeply in the GMC's Good Medical Practice 2024. When you make a mistake, you have these professional duties that go way beyond just the immediate clinical fix. You have a duty to be open and honest. That's the duty of candor. You have a duty to contribute to a culture that promotes safety and learning. And of course, a duty to keep clear, accurate, and timely records.
So the exam is basically setting a trap.
It's constantly testing your human instinct, which, let's be honest, might be to delay or to hide it or just to hope the harm goes away on its own against your professional duty.
Right.
And that duty is to disclose and document immediately.
And if you choose that path of delay or concealment, even if it was a near miss where no one was physically harmed, you've not only broken trust, you've actively blocked the entire organization from learning anything.
That's it. That's why those answers always score low.
Sure.
The exam scoring logic is really looking for three things. First, a prompt systems-focused analysis, not blame. Second, comprehensive action, so you're addressing the patient, the staff, and the system. And third, demonstrable, measurable learning outcome. If you just follow the correct sequence, you protect everyone. Yeah. You protect the patient clinically, you protect the system organizationally, and you protect yourself professionally just by following the guidelines.
Okay, let's get tactical. When an incident like this or a major complaint happens, you need a framework, something to guide you from that first moment of sheer panic right through to, say, a system change 6 months down the line. We're going to use the APEX-L framework. Think of it as the umbrella strategy that makes sure you don't miss a single crucial step.
And APEX-L provides that exact structure you need, especially when you're a junior doctor standing there alone on the ward. The core principle here is turning these awful incidents, these complaints, into safer care. And you do that by following a clear, documented process.
A process that protects patients and staff.
Yes, and crucially, promotes what we call a just culture. We'll come back to that.
Okay, so let's anchor this framework to what the GMC actually expects. Where do these steps even come from?
They all cluster around those core duties we just mentioned. The duty to be open and honest when things go wrong, that's your foundation of candor. The duty to contribute to a culture that promotes safety and learning. That's what feeds into all the governance systems. And the requirement to keep clear, accurate, timely records. That underpins every single action you're about to take.
So when the SJT scores you, it's really just checking if you understand that sequence.
Precisely.
So let's run our morphine overdose scenario through the 5 high-yield actions of APEX-L. Where do we start?
Step 1 is A, apologize and acknowledge. This has to be early, has to be specific, and it has to be compassionate.
Okay, but what are you apologizing for?
Importantly, you're apologizing for the experience they've had or the error that occurred. So in the morphine scenario, you've just realized the error, you've confirmed the patient is drowsy. Your first step, right after that immediate clinical look, is to acknowledge that a mistake has happened.
Hang on a second, but shouldn't I protect the patient first before I start talking about the error? Surely their clinical safety comes before any conversation.
That is a perfect point, and it highlights the nuance here. You have to make an immediate judgment call. Clinical priority always trumps conversation, which leads us directly to step 2, P, protect.
Okay, that makes more sense.
This means immediate clinical safety first. You assess the harm and you stabilize the patient immediately. So for the morphine case, before you even think about a long conversation or calling your senior, you must check their vital signs, you ensure their airway is safe, you get them on appropriate monitoring, and you have the antagonist naloxone ready to go.
So safety first. No exceptions.
Safety always comes first. You can briefly acknowledge the errors happened while you're doing this, but those protective measures are completely non-negotiable before any prolonged discussion.
Okay, so the patient is stabilized, they're on a monitor, the immediate risk is managed. Now we have to talk both to the patient and to the system. What's next in APEX-L?
Step 3 is escalate. And this is a dual duty, which is a common trap.
A dual duty?
Yes. First, you have to inform your senior clinician immediately. Even if they're scrubbed in theater, you send a runner, or you use the theater paging system. Give a brief, urgent message. Don't just wait for half an hour.
Right, that's the clinical escalation.
Exactly. But, and this is critical for the SJT, you also have to do the governance escalation. That means immediately logging the incident on the organization's system. Nationally, this is now the LFPSE, the Learning from Patient Safety Events System.
So for the morphine overdose, which is a serious prescribing error, you do both at the same time.
You must do both, and promptly.
And I can see the trap in the exam now. They'll give you options where you call the senior but you don't log it, or you log it but you decide to wait to tell the senior.
That's it. You must do both.
Like?
Clinical escalation and governance escalation are mandatory.
Okay. What's next?
Step 4 is explain next steps.
Mm-hmm.
Once the patient is safe and you've started that conversation and apology, they need clarity. They need to know what's going to happen.
You can't just leave them hanging.
Never. You outline the investigation timeline, you explain what support they'll get, and you tell them when they'll get an update. So for the morphine error, you'd reassure them. You'd say something like, we are going to monitor you very closely for the next 24 hours, and my consultant will come and speak with you personally tomorrow morning. They'll explain what we found in our initial review and how we'll stop this from ever happening again.
That transparency is key, I imagine. It sort of transforms it from being your personal failure into a professional process.
Precisely. And then finally, the step that ensures this whole crisis wasn't just a waste of time and distress. Step 5. L, learn.
Okay.
This means you document all the objective facts meticulously. You take time for structured personal reflection, which we'll cover in detail later, and you implement shared improvement actions. You have to convert the incident into concrete, system-level learning and feedback.
Right. So APEX-L gives us the whole structure. Apologize, protect, escalate, explain next steps, and learn. That's your peak performance strategy for when the worst happens.
Right.
Now, let's take a couple of those elements, the apology and explaining next steps, and really drill down into the specifics of that conversation with the patient. This needs 2 very specialized toolkits. And this is where the really high-yield SJT questions are, isn't it? Differentiating between, a formal disclosure of an error versus just handling general dissatisfaction or a complaint.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And they require specialized communication toolkits.
Yeah.
So let's start with disclosing mistakes. This falls under the duty of candor, and for this, we use the TAPER framework.
Paper. What does that stand for?
It stands for tell, apologize, plan, escalate, and record. And this framework aligns with both your professional and, in some cases, your statutory duties.
Before we get into taper, let's just hammer home that absolute prerequisite for any disclosure conversation.
Safety first.
Safety first.
It's so fundamental, and it's a common failure point in the real world when staff feel rushed and just want to get the conversation over with. You must make the patient safe immediately before you start the full disclosure.
So back to our IV morphine overdose.
Yes. The immediate clinical priority is stabilization, monitoring, mitigation. If you delay those safety measures to rush an apology, that's just poor clinical care. But once they're stable, if you delay the apology, you're breaching Candour.
So the timing is absolutely critical.
It's a fine balance. As soon as it is safe to do so, you must begin the taper process.
Okay, so patient is clinically stable. Now we start the conversation. First up is T tell and A apologize. What exactly should a junior doctor say, and how do you apologize without, admitting legal liability? That's a huge fear.
It is a huge fear, but it's a misconception. First, you must tell the patient or their representative what you know, factually and honestly as soon as you can. The apology itself must be sincere. And this is where the nuance is crucial. The NHS resolution guidance actually confirms that a professional apology is not an admission of legal liability. An apology is a humane, ethical necessity. It sounds something like this. I am so sorry that this error occurred during your care. We gave you 50 milligrams of morphine instead of 5 milligrams. I want to reassure you that we have put extra monitoring in place, and we are investigating how this happened right now. I deeply regret the distress this has caused you.
So you're acknowledging the regret, you're explaining the facts, but you're not saying, I am personally liable for this mistake.
Precisely. It shows compassion, and it shows accountability. It explains what happened, outlines the action you're taking, and commits to learning, all of which are mandatory parts of the professional duty of candor from the GMC.
Okay, now we get into the heavy stuff. P-plan next steps and E escalator report. This is where we need to separate the professional duty from the legal one. Let's talk about the statutory duty of candor. That's CQC Regulation 20, right?
Yes, and this is a high-yield exam distinction.
Yeah.
The professional duty applies to all clinicians, and it requires honesty for all errors or near misses that could even potentially cause harm.
All of them.
All of them. The statutory duty, which is Regulation 20, that's an organizational duty. It applies to the provider, so the trust, when a notifiable safety incident occurs. That means severe harm or death or something that could have led to it.
So as a junior doctor, what's my role in that?
Your highest scoring action is to escalate promptly to your seniors and the governance team to ensure the provider of the trust fulfills their legal duty. That duty includes notifying the patient in writing, apologizing formally, and keeping records.
So my job isn't to write the formal CQC letter. My job is to log the event immediately on LFPSE and tell my seniors so they can trigger the formal organizational response.
That is the core takeaway. Triggering that response is your mandatory high-scoring step. It shows you understand the process.
And finally, in taper, we have our record.
Non-negotiable. Meticulous, contemporaneous documentation. You document the objective facts, the patient's clinical state, the entire discussion, including that you apologized, the safety plan, and you must include the incident report reference number, the LFPSE ID.
Because if it's not documented,
it didn't happen. And the trap to avoid here, just to reiterate, is never waiting for harm to manifest and never, ever concealing a near miss. Openness is mandatory and it's time critical.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. What if the patient hasn't actually suffered a clinical error, but they are just intensely dissatisfied? Say they waited 10 hours in A&E or they felt a nurse was rude to them. This isn't a clinical error needing the taper framework, but it is a complaint. And it still needs a professional response.
Absolutely. And for this, we use the Care Plus framework. A complaint is an opportunity. It's a chance to restore trust and to improve safety. So the mindset here is calm, timely, and transparent.
So what does Care Plus stand for?
Clarify, apologize, root, explain timescales, and then the plus is act, document, and learn.
Let's focus on that initial interaction. C, clarify, and A, apologize. This must be so hard to do without getting defensive.
It is, but the first thing you have to do is just listen respectfully. Acknowledge their concerns, don't interrupt. You have to clarify exactly what the complaint is about.
And then the apology.
Then you apologize, clearly and sincerely, for their experience or for the distress that's been caused. Even if you privately disagree with the substance of the complaint, you still apologize for their distress. It shows accountability, and it's the fastest way to de-escalate the situation.
That's a really key difference from taper, where you're apologizing for a specific identifiable error.
Exactly. For taper, you confess the error.
Yeah.
For care plus A, you validate their distress.
Okay, then we get to R, root, and E explain timescales. This sounds like it demonstrates that process literacy you mentioned.
It does. You have to explain the NHS complaints pathway and the expected investigation timescales very clearly. This manages their expectations, and it stops frustration from building.
And what's a high scoring action here?
Proactively signposting them to PAL, the Patient Advice and Liaison Service. PLS provides information, support, and helps them navigate the whole process. Giving the PLS details right up front is a clear mark of professional support.
And the PAL Plus and Care Plus A, that's to make sure the issue isn't just parked while a formal investigation grinds on for weeks.
Exactly. The HIA Plus is act, document, and learn. You have to offer immediate, safe fixes if you can. For example, if the complaint is about needing a piece of equipment that wasn't delivered, you arrange the delivery immediately. If it's a missed appointment, you rebook it.
So you don't just say, wait for the complaints team to contact you in 6 weeks.
You never say that. You document the complaint accurately, including the immediate fixes you made and the fact you provided PLS details, and you make sure the issue is logged in the governance system.
So let's put it into practice. A relative is furious about rudeness from a consultant and asks what happens next. The high-scoring response would be something like,
It would be detailed accountability. Something like, I'm so sorry for the rudeness you experienced. Thank you for telling us about this. We take it very seriously. I will record this today, and our management team will investigate. They will contact you within X days to explain the timeline. In the meantime, here are the details for PLS who can support you through this process.
that covers everything. It's compassionate, transparent, and it shows you know the process.
It covers every element of Care Plus.
And the pitfalls here are really all about attitude, aren't they?
Completely. Never argue, never defend, never ever blame colleagues. It's defensive, it's unprofessional, and it just destroys any hope of restoring trust. And you never delay. You acknowledge now, you apologize now, you explain the process now, and then you investigate and learn.
Okay, so we've handled the external crisis, that conversation with the patient. Now we need to shift inward to the organizational solution. Once the immediate human issues are dealt with, the system itself has to learn so this doesn't happen again.
Yes, and now we're in the domain of governance and systems thinking.
This segment is all about turning incidents and near misses into actual, tangible, safer care.
And the SJT really requires you to understand the modern NHS patient safety frameworks, which are LFPSE and PSIRF. And I want to stress this. Near misses are absolutely vital learning opportunities
Why so vital?
because they show you the weaknesses in your system, but without the terrible cost of patient harm. They have to be logged with exactly the same diligence as an event that did cause harm.
Okay, so let's define the key players here. LFPSE and PSIRF. What are they?
LFPSE is the Learning from Patient Safety Events National System. Think of it as the national database, the mechanism for recording. Every incident, every near miss, every complaint that relates to safety or quality has to be logged on there.
And why is that so important?
Prompt logging ensures the event has visibility, not just locally, but nationally. It allows for trend analysis. It stops an event from becoming a local secret that just gets repeated in another hospital a year later.
Right. And PSIRF, the Patient Safety Incident Response Framework, that dictates how we investigate. This replaced the old system of doing a root cause analysis and RCA for everything. Why did that change?
This is a really critical point for understanding the modern safety culture. The old system often meant a full, formal RCA for almost every event. It was incredibly resource-intensive, it was slow, and honestly, it often produced very generic results like improved communication.
I've seen those reports.
We all have. PSIRF mandates a proportionate response. This means the depth of your investigation should match the risk, the severity of the harm, and most importantly, the learning value of the incident.
So we're moving away from generic, time-consuming paperwork towards, what? Fast, focused learning.
Precisely. Responses can range from a quick local safety huddle, a 5-minute chat on the ward for a simple near miss, all the way to a full, in-depth investigation for an instance of severe harm. The SJT will reward you for choosing a proportional review that focuses on system factors and context, not just blaming an individual.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If you log a wrong-site surgery near miss that was caught during the WHO checklist timeout, the highest scoring action is to log it, inform the patient, and then propose a proportional PSIRF review. That might just be a local huddle and a 5-day action plan. You wouldn't launch a 3-month, resource-draining formal investigation.
That makes perfect sense. So to structure this whole governance sequence, we use the learn mnemonic.
Exactly. The Learn framework structures the entire system response. L, log the event promptly, securing all the factual evidence right away.
Okay.
E, engage with the patients, families, and staff compassionately. Agree on how and when you'll contact them during the review. A, analyze proportionally, choosing the right PSRF method huddle, focused review, or full investigation, always with a systems lens.
Then R and N.
Our react. This is about implementing smart actions with named owners and deadlines. And finally, N, notify feedback, sharing what you've learned and monitoring the impact.
Let's drill down into React and creating smart actions, because this feels like the part where learning processes often fall apart and the same mistakes just happen over and over again.
It is. You can't just write an action that says, we must try harder. That is completely useless. SMART stands for a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
So for our morphine error, if it happened because of two similarly labeled drugs in the prescribing software,
And the action must address that system issue.
give us an example of a high-scoring smart action versus a low-scoring one for that.
Okay. A low-scoring action would be, staff must check dosages more carefully.
Useless.
Completely. A high-scoring action would be, owner, lead pharmacist, action. Review the electronic prescribing alert system for all high-risk opioids and implement a hard stop feature that requires a manual override for any dose exceeding 10 milligram deadline into the next quarter.
That is measurable, specific, and totally system-focused.
That's concrete.
And now, notify feedback. This is about closing the loop, right? How do we know the learning has actually made care safer?
Feedback has to go back to the patient, the family, and the staff involved. You have to explain what was learned and what actions were taken. But more importantly, the impact of those smart actions has to be monitored at the governance level. Not just once, but continuously.
So you check in again later.
Yes. If that electronic prescribing hard stop is implemented, the safety team must audit prescribing habits 6 months later to confirm the risk has genuinely been reduced. If it hasn't, you have to go back and review it again.
And this entire process, it all hinges on avoiding that ultimate red flag, a punitive culture.
Absolutely. The goal is a just culture. A punitive culture asks, who made the mistake? Let's fire them. A just culture asks, what systemic factors or pressures led this otherwise competent clinician to make this error?
It's a total mindset shift.
It is. From blaming the individual to focusing on the context like fatigue, poor staffing, confusing equipment. Punitive emails, gossip, they destroy psychological safety. If staff are scared of being blamed, they will just stop speaking up about near misses. And your duty is to model just culture language, and if you see punitive behavior, you have to escalate that to protect the safety of the whole system.
So we've handled the external demands with candor and complaints, and the organizational demands with governance. Now we have to turn inward. We need to address personal learning and team recovery, which are the final essential steps after a major incident.
And these are high-yield areas that really test your emotional intelligence, your personal integrity, and your peer support skills.
Okay, so let's start with personal learning. The GMC mandates reflection. And the SJT loves scenarios where you have to decide what to include in a reflective note.
Reflection has to be structured. It can't just be a brain dump of how you feel. The easiest and most effective structure is the WSN triangle.
The W, what, S, so what, N, now what, structure.
That's the one, what,
Yeah.
is for the brief, objective facts, a factual account of the timeline, the clinical status, the actions you took, no emotion, no blame.
Okay.
So what is for the insights. What were the things that contributed to this? What did you learn about your own knowledge gap or about the system's pressures that were at play? This is where you really demonstrate that learning has occurred.
And now what is the most critical part, I'm guessing?
It is. This is where you put your smart actions for yourself, your timelines, and your commitment to change. So for our morphine error, now what might be, I will seek immediate supervision for all high-risk IV prescribing for the next 2 weeks, and I will complete the advanced prescribing module by the end of this month.
Now let's talk about the ethical elephant in the room here, anonymization. Why is including patient identifiers like names, hospital numbers, specific dates in a personal reflection note always the lowest scoring option?
This is a major, major trap. It's designed to test your understanding of probity and confidentiality. Reflective notes must be rigorously anonymized.
So no names, no identifiers at all.
None. No names, no patient data, no MRNs. The second you include identifiers, even if you think it's for accuracy, you have breached patient confidentiality. And this isn't just poor practice. It's a serious probity issue that could lead to fitness to practice concerns. The note must be focused entirely on learning and improvement, not on identifying the patient or assigning blame.
So the trap answer, which might be something like, include names and the MRN in the note so my supervisor can verify the accuracy, is just fundamentally flawed.
Completely flawed. Your primary duty is confidentiality. The accuracy is verified by the formal governance report and the patient's actual medical records. Those are separate documents. Your reflective note is for personal learning.
And you have to share the learning, right?
Yes, you have to share the anonymized learning points with the team, maybe at a safety huddle, to make sure that system improvement isn't just locked away in your private portfolio. The other trap, of course, is to write nothing to avoid problems. And that's just choosing self-protection over professional learning.
Okay, so that's personal recovery. But incidents often involve a whole team. And clinicians involved in serious incidents, they're often called second victims. Supporting them feels critical not just for their welfare, but for sustained patient safety.
It is. Cared-for staff sustain safer care. And the SJT will test your ability to model a just culture when you're supporting your peers. For this, we use the care staff framework.
Care staff.
You can summarize it with the 3 C's: care for the colleague, Coach Candour, and culture promotion.
So what are the immediate high-yield actions for supporting a junior doctor who is visibly distressed after making a serious error?
The first thing is immediate triage. Check their welfare. If they're distressed, if they're shaking, if they're potentially unsafe to practice, you must remove them from duties immediately and arrange for competent cover. That protects the next patient, and it protects your colleague.
And then?
Then, provide practical support. Arrange an immediate confidential debrief with a senior clinician. Signpost them to well-being resources like occupational health or the employee assistance program. The crucial thing is, do not leave them alone.
This brings up a really challenging dilemma, one the SJT loves. How do I balance my duty to protect my colleague, the second victim, with the immediate need for candor towards the patient?
And that's the third C, Coach Candour. Support does not mean protecting them from their professional duties. It means supporting them to meet those duties.
So you help them do the right thing.
Exactly. You never leave a colleague to apologize alone to a patient, especially after a significant error. You can offer to coach them on the conversation, maybe help them structure it using that taper model we discussed. Or you could even just offer to be present in the room with them.
This all circles back to the just culture mandate, doesn't it? Support and accountability can and must coexist.
Correct. Just culture means treating staff fairly, focusing on the system while still establishing the objective facts. Punitive emails, gossip, those are immediate system destroyers. You have to halt that and escalate it because it just breeds distrust.
And the final step?
Final step is follow-up. Check on your colleague later that day and then the next day. And confirm that the learning actions, like getting them a copy of the guideline, have actually been implemented.
That level of detail, from the initial clinical rescue all the way through to the staff welfare follow-up, that is exactly what the MSRA demands. We have now built this comprehensive safety net using APEX-LL, TAPER, CARE plus DEMROC, Learn, and WSN Care staff. It's the entire response strategy. So let's solidify all of this with a rapid-fire review of the classic SJT traps.
Knowing the pattern of the low-scoring answers is often the fastest way to find the highest-scoring one.
Yeah, you can filter them out.
We can group these traps based on the professional duty they violate.
Okay, so trap category 1, delay and silence. This is about breaching the duty of candor and risking patient safety. What do these decoy answers actually look like?
They look very tempting.
Yeah.
They sound like, wait until tomorrow to report it, or fix the patient quietly and tell no one since they seem stable now, or maybe wait for the consultant to come back from theater before logging anything.
And why do they fail?
Candor is immediate and it's time critical. Waiting just risks further harm, and concealing the event completely blocks any system learning. Even if your senior is busy, that governance escalation logging the event, you cannot wait.
Okay, trap category 2, blame and defensiveness. This destroys the just culture and professionalism.
So the exam might offer you an option like send a strong email blaming the FY1 for the error, or argue forcefully with the complainant defending the rudeness of the nurse.
And why are these wrong?
Blame is never a systems-focused response, and arguing or being defensive just destroys trust, and it's deeply unprofessional. The NHS culture demands a focus on the system and accountability for the patient's experience.
Right. Trap category 3, falsification and probity breach. This is all about record keeping and your personal integrity.
The classic traps here are very serious. Things like Edit the notes retrospectively without a clear annotation and timestamp. Or include patient names and hospital numbers in your reflection note for accuracy.
And the reason they fail.
Retrospective editing without a clear note is dishonesty. It's a serious probity breach. And including identifiers in reflections, as we said, breaches confidentiality. Your documentation must be factual, accurate, and safe.
Okay, one more category. Trap category 4. Disproportionate response and ignoring learning. This tests your understanding of modern governance.
So the traps here might be launch a full 3-month root cause analysis for a minor near miss, or keep the investigation findings confidential to avoid negative publicity.
Right, and they fail because
Launching a full RCA for everything wastes huge resources, and it delays simple fixes. Remember, PSIRF mandates proportionality. And keeping findings confidential prevents shared learning, which is the entire point of the governance system. And of course, ignoring near misses because no harm occurred is a complete failure to learn from system signals.
that gives you such a comprehensive filter for getting rid of the wrong answers quickly. Now, let's wrap this up with a quick rapid-fire drill. We'll link a specific scenario back to the APEXL steps and the framework you need.
Right?
Okay. A wrong site surgery new miss is caught during the WHO timeout in theater. The patient has not yet been informed.
Action sequence. Log the near miss on LFPSE immediately. Use the taper framework to inform the patient about the system weakness and apologize for the distress. Agree to a proportionate PSIRF review, probably a focused review, and make sure system-level smart actions are assigned immediately.
Next one. A relative complains angrily about long waiting times and asks what happens next with the investigation.
Action sequence. Use care plus not. Listen and acknowledge their frustration. Apologize for their experience. Clarify the issue. Explain the formal complaints pathway and timescales clearly. Provide the parallel details proactively. And offer any immediate operational fix you can, like checking their current place in the queue.
Okay. You are writing a reflective note for your portfolio on a case where a junior colleague made a significant error because of a system failure.
Action sequence. Use WSN what, so what, now what. Rigorously anonymize the reflection, so no names, no IDs. Focus the learning on the system factors and set specific, measurable smart actions for yourself, like supervising the next trainee during that particular task. Then share those anonymized learning points at the safety huddle.
Last one. A colleague is tearful and clearly distressed after a severe medication error, and the consultant is unavailable.
Action sequence. Immediately use care staff. Check their welfare, remove them from clinical tasks, and arrange competent cover. Arrange an immediate debrief and signpost them to occupational health. Do not leave them alone. And support the required candor conversation with the patient, offering to coach them or be present.
Excellent. We've synthesized the entire professional toolkit. Let's just bring it all home with the 3 absolutely essential key takeaways from this deep dive.
Okay, key takeaway 1. Always prioritize patient safety, that's the protection, then disclose errors promptly using taper with a sincere, structured apology. And remember that apology is a professional necessity, not an admission of legal liability.
Key takeaway 2.
Use the governance frameworks, LFPSE, Learn, and PSIRF's proportionality to convert incidents and near misses into shared, system-level learning that focuses entirely on smart actions, not on individual blame.
And the final one.
And key takeaway 3. Escalation, both clinical and governance, transparent, time-stamped documentation, and supporting affected staff with welfare checks using care staff. These are mandatory, high-scoring actions that underpin a just and a safe culture.
That is the comprehensive response strategy. It takes you right from the initial panic of that 50-milligram prescription all the way through to the system changes that will stop it from happening again. We've really seen how APEXL just links every single piece of that puzzle together.
The frameworks APEXL, Paper, Care, plus WSN, they give you the structure you desperately need when your mind is racing. But here's a final provocative thought, building on that need for a learning culture.
Go on.
The hardest part isn't the initial disclosure. It's not logging the event. It's the follow-through. It's the diligence that's required to make sure those smart actions are actually implemented and then monitored and then reviewed 6 months later to confirm the risk has truly been reduced. That is the final true test of a learning culture. It's sustained vigilance.
The phenomenal reminder that safety is a continuous cycle, not a one-off event. Remember, every error is a system weakness just waiting to be fixed. Go convert that learning. And if you're looking for more high-yield revision content and powerful frameworks just like these to help you master the MSRA, you know where to find us at passthemsra.com. Happy diving!